Okay, I think we're ready to start. So tonight we're going to look at a portion of the 4 decisive instructions on purity. And we will also do that next week.
Chih Pastor, would you like to have Yihuan request Dharma first?
If you would like to request Dharma, you're welcome to. I will comply.
Okay. Yihuan is ready to request Dharma. So, Yihuan, you can start anytime.
Okay. 恭敬大德僧听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们。如何了生脱死离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly, and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and embers and death, and quickly realize numbers.
萨旦头苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三菩提舍。
南无萨旦陀苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三不陀邪。
南无萨旦头苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三菩提舍。
南无萨旦陀苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三不陀邪。
南无萨旦头苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三菩提舍。
南无萨旦陀苏切多耶阿拉诃帝三藐三不陀邪。
那么我们先说3种释迦牟尼佛，你跟我一起。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。南无本师释迦牟尼佛。Homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. So tonight we're looking at the 4 decisive instructions on purity, which is a section of the Shurangama Sutra. This is the text, and I'd like, Tian, are you here? Can you have people read Chinese and English of the text, please?
So, 今天我们是跟诸位分享《楞严经》其中的一个章节，叫做4种清净明悔。
Ian isn't here.
But I can recite Chinese.
Okay, you say Chinese, I'll say English.
Okay. 阿难整衣服，于大众中合掌顶礼，心机圆明，悲心交集，欲益未来诸众生故，居首白佛，大悲世尊，我今已悟，成佛法门，世中修行，得无疑惑。
Nanda straightened his robes, and in the midst of the assembly placed his palms together and bowed. At once joyful and sorrowful, he now understood perfectly the path his mind had taken. Wishing to benefit the beings of the future, he bowed his head and said respectfully, "Greatly compassionate world-honored one, I now understand this Dharma for becoming a Buddha. I can practice this method unhindered by the slightest doubt. Okay, so this is the commentary. I'm just going to read it and talk about it. So this is Venerable Master Hua making comments about the text passage. Master Hua says, then Venerable Nanda adjusted his robe, put his palms together respectfully, and bowed at the Buddha's feet. Having been moved by the Buddha's instruction, he understood how to turn back the hearing and how to sequentially untie the knots. Thus his mind had gained clarity and he felt joy. Now, turn back the hearing, I think we understand to be the method that Guanyin used to become awakened. But untying the knots, we're going to stop before we go on, and we're going to look at a chart about the 6 knots to remind people about them. So here are the 6 knots: movement, stillness, the organ, awakening, emptiness, and extinction. Those are the knots that get untied as Guanyin returns the hearing. And these correspond. So movement and stillness correspond to the turbidity of time. The organ, the ear organ, corresponds to the view turbidity. Awakening corresponds to the affliction turbidity. Emptiness to the living being's turbidity, and extinction to the lifespan turbidity. We can also look here at the 3 subtle and 6 coarse marks. Of the 6 coarse marks, extinction has the 3 subtle: the mark of appearing, the mark of turning, and the mark of doing, or karma. Those are the 3 subtle marks that fit with extinction. Emptiness is the mark of knowing or wisdom. Awakening is the mark of continuation. The organ is the mark of grasping. Stillness is the mark of naming. And movement is the mark of karmic bound suffering. Also, the 6 knots correspond to the 5 skandhas, with movement and stillness being form, the organs being feeling, awakening being thinking, emptiness being mental flux, and extinction being consciousness. I will take you through a little bit of this.
Do we need Chinese translation?
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
And then to
Yes,
translate.
Fashi, could you return to Master Hua's commentary, that page?
I'm sorry.
That was where we stopped. And then, 所以这页诸位所看到的呢，是宣公上人对4种清净明悔的解释，他的注释。这时，阿难尊者在大众中整理一下衣服，合掌恭敬，顶礼佛足，感佛开示，明白旋流反文，次第解结的事迹，故心里亦得到圆明快乐。我们这里看到反文，其实它指的就是观世音菩萨的反文文字性的一个法门。然后其中讲到解结，我们等一下会看到一张表，是关于我们6个结，那如何 来相对应在每一个不同的心事。像譬如说的6个节呢，它的第一个是动，第2是静，第3是根，第4是觉，第5是空，第6是灭。所以它呢，譬如说它的动跟静，它所相对应的5浊呢，就是我们的结浊。然后它的根的结呢，相对应的5浊是见浊。我们的觉的这个结所相对应的是烦恼浊。我们空的结呢，相对应的是众生浊。我们的灭结呢，相对应的是命浊。然后在我们的节还有分成3细6粗，它其中的6种呢，我们可以看到它的3个细，叫做一个是现象，一个是转向，一个是业相。这3种相呢，是它的细的相，它所相对应的就是一个灭的结。然后在我们的志向，志向所相对应的结呢是空，空的这个结。然后第5个是相续相，相续相所对应的呢是我们觉，就觉悟的这个觉。然后我们的第6个直取相，这个直取相所对应的是我们的根的这个结。我们的寂明自相所相对应的是静，安静的静，静结。再来是我们的业系苦相，或是起业相，相对应的是我们动的结。然后我们的，譬如说我们的灭的这个结，6节的结呢，它所相对应是意识这个识。然后空所面对的是行，行的这个意识，这个5音。然后我们的觉所相对应的5音呢是响音，我们根所相对应的5音是受音。然后我们动跟静的结相对应的是色，就色音。阿弥陀佛。
To go to the summary of the 6 knots, where
we have Terry and Barbara who can read English.
okay,
And
good.
we have Ali Cynthia, and Yuhan can read Chinese.
Okay. So I think we want to read these 2 pages. When Guanyin starts to talk, she says, first, I began with a practice based on the enlightened nature of hearing. And so this one zhong has been translated the enlightened nature of hearing. So I think we should read this page and this page in order to understand. So I'll let Terry and Yihuan read the Chinese English on this page, and then we'll flip to the next one.
出于文中，即最初乃于耳根闻性之中下手起修，以耳根为所度之妙门，以闻性为所照之理性，从根中本觉妙理，起如幻始觉妙智，以智照理，闻熏闻修也。
I began my practice based on the enlightened nature of hearing. From the very beginning, my cultivation focused on the ear faculty and the nature of hearing. The ear faculty was the wonderful gateway I entered. The nature of hearing was the principle that the practice illumined. From the ear faculty, the wonderful principle of original enlightenment gives rise to the elusive, wonderful wisdom of beginning enlightenment. I use that wisdom to make clear the principle. Being permeated with hearing, I cultivated hearing.
“文中二字，首以简别分明，不可错用音形。一，非肉耳之中，以肉耳浮成色法，不合决定一门；二，非耳识之中，以耳识随念分别，故非菩提正因；三，非意识之中，以意识生死根本，正是圆通障碍。”
It's necessary, this is suddenly very big on my screen. It's necessary to clarify the enlightened nature of hearing so we don't mistake the function of the mind on the cause ground. One, this doesn't refer to the flesh ear because the flesh ear is simply an aspect of form dharmas, which is not an appropriate gateway to the decisive meaning. Two, this doesn't refer to the ear consciousness because the ear consciousness follows the discriminations made by thoughts and thus is not a proper cause for reaching Bodhi. Whoops. Three, this doesn't refer to the sixth mind consciousness because the mind consciousness is the basis for birth and death, which is an obstacle to becoming enlightened. Whoops, I'm having, my screen just disappeared.
Okay, so the text brought up original enlightenment, beginning enlightenment. So original enlightenment is where we were before our mind moved. It was that indefinable place that was perfectly calm and peaceful. And then our mind moved. When our mind moved, then we eventually came to where we are now. And at some point, if we bring forth a resolve for Bodhi, or we have an initial awakening, then that starts us back on the road to original enlightenment. Our Bodhi mind awakens, and we make the resolve that we want to be completely awakened. So then ultimately what happens is ultimate awakening is when we, because of beginning enlightenment, we proceed to practice until we reach ultimate. And ultimate is really returning to original. Ellen?
我们这里看到呢，有三种不同的觉悟的不同的层次：本觉、始觉跟究竟觉。本觉所指的呢，就是在我们的心未动之前，它的本来的觉。所以，当我们的心动了之后呢，就没有办法保持它之前的一种平静、平和的状态。然后始觉呢，就是我们开始去了解到，我们其实有这样子一个本来的一个本觉，所以我们开始呢，就起了我们的菩提心。我们开始呢，就是朝着恢复我们的本觉这个方式来修行来做。然后它的究竟觉呢，就是我们从我们的始觉开始之后，开始回去到我们本觉这个路上开始修行，最终达到的一个究竟的觉悟，就是这个究竟觉。所以它有这样子的一个次序。
Again, so Ewan and Terry, could you read this page? I think these few pages are pretty important.
故阿难请求否定， 佛既三番破失，欲令舍而去之；十番显见，欲令取而用之。言而虽别，其性则同。今此文中，即佛所显之见中也。又即如来广会四科，遍容七大，所显三如来藏性之中也。
Thus, when Ananda requested the samadhi from the Buddha first refuted the mind consciousness in 3 ways, so that Ananda would let go. Then he affirmed visual awareness in 10 ways, so that Ananda would find it and use it. Although the eyes and ears are different, their nature is the same. So now the enlightened nature of hearing is endowed with the same attributes that Buddha described in the visual awareness section, as well as being the same as the nature of the matrix of the thus come one that the Buddha described in the 4 sections, as pervasive as the 7 primary elements.
Okay, so we'll go to the asterisk on the next page. So, Buddha refuted the mind consciousness in 3 ways. So he said the false consciousness has no location, it is not the mind, and it has no substance. Those were his 3 ways of refuting the false consciousness. Then he described visual awareness in 10 ways so that Ananda would find it and use it. And the 10 ways here, maybe we could have Iwan and Terry read those, please.
所以再来呢
Sorry, Ellen, go
再
ahead.
来佛陀呢是以3番破释，就意识的释，然后他来破，他有讲出3个重点，一个是破妄是无处，第二呢是斥妄是非心，第3是推妄是无体。所以第一个指的就是我们的视心，它并没有一个处所。第二个，我们这个视心呢，其实不是我们的本心或是我们的真心。第3指的这个视心呢，它其实是它没有它的一个真实体、无体，所以它是用这3种方式来破阿难的这个心事。然后再来，佛陀有解释到，就是我们的眼识，它是用10种不同的方式来解释眼识。那之后我们会再来念。阿弥陀佛。
1显见是心，2显见不动，3显见不灭，4显见不失，5显见无还，6显见不杂，7显见无碍，8显见不分，9显见超情，10显见离见。
1. Visual awareness is the mind, true mind. Visual awareness does not. 2. Visual awareness does not move. 3. Visual awareness does not perish. 4. Visual awareness is not lost. 5. Visual awareness does not return to anything else. 6. Visual awareness does not mix with anything else. 7. Visual awareness is not obstructed. 8. Visual awareness cannot be divided. 9. Visual awareness transcends the ordinary emotions. 10. Visual awareness is distinct from seeing.
Okay, so I'm not going to go further into those. We come to the next, which is the 4 sections. And the 4 sections in the Shurangama refer to the 5 skandha section, the 6 sense faculties section, the 12 sites section and the 18 constituents section. Alan?
所以再来这个四个解释的方式呢，对这个广会四科，对广会四科这个四科所指的，就是第一科呢是五音，第二呢是六入，第三是12处，第四是18界，所以广会四科就指的这四个大的一个项目。
Finally, we come to the 7 primary elements that are discussed in the Shurangama. And so, Iwan and Terry, can you read those, please?
1地大，2火大，3水大，4风大，5空大，6见大，7识大。
1 earth, 2 fire, 3 water, 4 wind, 5 space, 6 awareness, 7 consciousness.
It's a good idea to remember these 7, because as you go through the various sections of the Shurangama, there is discussion of them. Earth, fire, water, and wind we can recognize. Space we can recognize. There's also discussion of awareness and of consciousness. Alan?
像这里指的遍容七大，像遍容七大指的就是地水火风空见识。像我们地水火风大家都很熟，我们可以把它背起来。然后再来讲的是我们空，这也可以记得很清楚。然后我们的见，第7就是识，所以把这7个就遍容七大，把它记住。
Okay, we're going to go to understand that this is a discussion of what Guanyin had to say and how it connects with untying the knots. Because in our major text, we came to the 6 knots. So I want to go over it so everybody remembers. So again, I think Iwan and Terry, can you continue reading?
往所者是解动解，所入即动静二相，了然不生者，此3句乃解静解。身成动静二结具解，则色应破矣。
The external sounds disappeared describes releasing the first knot of movement. With the direction of my hearing reversed and with sounds stilled, both sounds and silence cease to arise. Releasing the second knot of stillness, the release of the 2 knots of sounds and silence brings the form aggregate breakthrough.
Okay, so in David's translation, he called the movement sound, which makes sense, it's vibration, and he called the stillness silence, also makes sense because it's a lack of vibration. So, and then down here, the sounds, and the movement and the stillness would be sounds and silence, and that's the first aggregate. So external sounds disappeared, and that's the first knot gone. With the direction of my hearing reversed and with sound stilled, both sounds and silence cease to arise, and that's the release of the second knot, and that breaks through the form skandha. So the form skanda of the 6 knots related to the 5 skandhas, the first skandha has 2 knots that have to be broken through.
所以呢，在so 法师我叫做 repeat to the previous page, yes. 所以王所呢，它呢就是把我们的动结给解了，所入即极，动静二相了然不生，就去解掉我们的第2个结，就我们的静结。所以我们的动结跟静结2个结都解了之后呢，我们的5音的第1个音色音才破。所以我们要破第1个色音呢，其实它有2个结要去解，动跟静。
Okay, so movement and stillness of the 6 knots will release the form skanda. So it takes longer to get through form. Okay, let's read Chinese and English, please.
如是见增，闻所闻境者，所闻动静2成，即已了然不生。能闻之根，亦随所闻以俱尽。尘既不圆，根无所偶，到此则解根结。无有能受所受，则受因破矣。
So it was, as I gradually progressed, what I heard and my awareness of what I heard came to an end. Since sound and silence do not arise, then the faculty's ability to hear has nothing to hear. The objective states have no conditions, and the faculty has nothing to do. This is when the 3rd knot of the faculty is released. And since there's nothing received or felt by the subject, that brings feeling aggregate breakthrough.
So there's nothing received and felt by the subject. That brings a feeling aggregate breakthrough.
所以就是这个无有能所受，无有能所受，所以受因就会破。
We feel nothing. So that is the end of the feeling skanda. Okay, Chinese and English.
施法师on the screen is 如是见增，闻所闻境者. Is this one? You want us to read this one?
如是见增，闻所闻境者。
Okay. 解跟结，
Mm-hmm.
则受因破矣。
Yeah.
So it was that as I gradually progressed, what I heard and my awareness of what I heard came to an end, releasing the 3rd knot of the organ, feeling aggregate breakthrough, feeling skanda ended.
Okay. Two languages.
静闻不住，觉所觉空者，此解决结。根尘既消，事无从生，则想因亦于此破矣。
Even when that state of mind in which everything has come to an end disappeared, I did not rest. My awareness and the objects of my awareness were emptied, released of the 4th knot of awareness. With the faculty and the objective states ended, nothing arises in the consciousness, and that brings cognition aggregate breakthrough.
Okay, so this statement, even when the state of mind in which everything has come to an end disappeared, I didn't rest. My awareness and the objects of my awareness were emptied. And that whole passage describes the release of the fourth knot of awareness. And so he had a breakthrough in his cognition or consciousness skandha. So this is a summary. Please read.
静闻不住，觉所觉空，解觉结，则相应破矣。
Even when that state of mind in which everything has come to an end disappeared, I did not rest. My awareness and the objects of my awareness were empty, releasing the fourth knot of awareness. Cognition aggregate breakthrough, cognition skandha ended.
One Alan to translate.
I didn't say much. And they translated the rest. Alan, you want to translate?
Yeah, I can say a little bit. 我们这里所知道的觉所觉空，然后静闻不住，就是说你觉的这个静跟觉的这个知，这两个都破，你就是可是你还继续的往前走。静闻这个闻的这个觉知继续往前，到之后呢，这个我们的响应就会破，因为它解了这个觉结。
Okay, so we have two more, which will be our equivalent to our seventh and eighth consciousnesses.
空觉即缘，空所空灭，此解空结。
And when that process of emptying my awareness was wholly complete, then even that emptying and what has been emptied vanished, describes the release of the fifth knot of emptiness.
Emptying refers to the emptying of awareness and the objects of my awareness. Awareness refers to the subject who is aware and the objects he is aware of. The emptying of the two meanings of awareness released the knot of awakening. But emptiness is also a knot that must be released. Thus, as long as what does the emptying and that which is emptied still remain, the quality of emptiness is not yet perfected. If we misinterpret the principle of emptiness and cannot let it go, then our fondness for that principle is a fondness for Dharma and means we still have work in order to enter the flow and illumine the nature. We have to investigate to find what we are relying on before the quality of emptiness can be perfected. Yuan, can you read the Chinese, please?
空，即觉所觉空之空。觉，即能觉之于所觉。犹有此空，空比能所二觉，则觉结难解。空亦是结，亦当解除。以能空所空，二句宛在。空性未圆，则另习空理，不肯放舍。即使爱理之法爱，还要入流照性，加功用横，参究空何所依，久而及之，以求圆满空性。
Okay, I don't have any comment here. We're going to go on. Terry and Iwan, please read this page.
空所空灭者，非为所空之至境灭，即能空之空也灭。如以木转木，火出木烧，二俱灭矣。今空结一结，则行因破矣。
Even that emptying and what had been emptied vanished. It is not only that the recognition of what is made empty ends, the emptying that is done by the one who empties is also gone. It is like how the stick that is used to rub another stick into fire also burns up, so that both are consumed. Now the release of the knot of emptiness brings mental flux, aggregate breakthrough.
So this is Master Yan Ying. He was around until the 1950s sometimes. And it's enjoyable to read his commentary. It's in modern enough Chinese that most of us today can read it smoothly and enjoy it. And he does nice things like here. It's like how the stick that is rubbed with another stick to make fire also burns up. Very nice analogy here. Immediately makes it very clear what's meant.
像诸位现在所看到的是元音大师的楞严经的注述，他呢注释一直到将近1950年左右，所以他写的注释的语言呢是比较现代，所以比较能够去了解。所以我相信呢，在读的过程呢，你能够很去享受到他所用的这些词句，你都能够去了解。譬如像他这里所举的这个例子，他是来解释就是空所空灭者。它的例子是指说以木钻木，火出木烧，所以木头烧完的时候火也灭了，所以木头跟火两个都俱灭。他用这样子的一个形容呢，来描述这个空所空灭者，就很容易让人能够了解这个经文所解释的意思。所以这是元音大师的注解。
So this is the fifth knot of awareness, and it's the formation skandha. So we come to the last of the 6 knots, which is going to end the consciousness skandha. Chinese and English, please, Iwan and Terry.
生灭即灭，即灭现前者，此解灭劫，今灭劫已解，则识破矣。
Coming into being and ceasing to be themselves cease to be. Then the ultimate stillness was revealed, describes the release of the 6th knot of cessation. When the cessation knot is released, the consciousness aggregate is broken through.
This isn't easy. The commentators and Shifu himself talk about how consciousness is underlying everything about us. And so it's not a separate entity that is easily broken through. Because when the consciousness is broken through, our ego and our identity is broken through. And then who is it that can recognize that consciousness is broken through? So it becomes a bit of a riddle or a bit of a catch-22.
像这里呢是元音大师的注解，上面也有解释。像生灭寂灭之后呢，寂灭现前，这个灭劫解了以后，识就破了五音的这个识。可是它这里有个问题，就是说呢，因为我们的这个识心其实骗住一切， 然后当这个世心破了之后呢，其实这个我这个自我的世心呢就破了。可是你如何去知道你这个自我的世心破了呢？因为你有这个世心来察觉来觉知，所以它变成是一个很有意思的一个回路，一个路圈，所以大家可以去好好去思考。
Okay, so here's a review in Chinese and English. Terry and Yihuan.
生灭即灭，即灭现前者，解是劫，则行因破矣。
Coming into being and ceasing to be themselves cease to be. Then the ultimate stillness was revealed, releasing the sixth knot of awareness. Consciousness aggregate breakthrough, consciousness skanda ended.
Okay, so that is the 6 knots and how they are released. So having reviewed that, we can now go back to our commentary on the 4 decisive aspects of purity. So because here we untied the knots. So now you know again in detail how that happened.
所以6节破了之后呢，5音就破。所以我们刚才的解释就是如何去破这个6节，然后跟5音破的这个相连性。那再来我们就回到就是我们的4种清净明悔，再回到经文来。
Okay, we have one more page of commentary. In a mixture of sorrow and happiness, he took pity on sentient beings in the Dharma ending age, who, like him, would be confused and not yet awakened. For the sake of those sentient beings, he lowered his head and spoke to the Buddha. This is Ananda. Ananda says, greatly compassionate, world-honored one, I already understand how to become a Buddha by cultivating the method of the ear organ. I have no doubt at all that I can achieve this. Okay, so then we're back to the text. So can we read 2 languages? Yihuan and Terry, you want to continue?
Sure.
昂闻如来说如是言：自未得度，先度人者，菩萨发心；自觉已圆，能觉他者，如来应是。我虽未度，愿度末劫一切众生。
I have often heard the thus come one say that bodhisattvas resolve to help others make the crossing before completing the crossing themselves, while the Buddhas, having already completed the crossing, act in the world by guiding others to enlightenment. I myself have not completed the crossing, but I vow to bring across all beings who live in the future in the time of the Dharma's ending.
Oh, this is a vow that Ananda makes. And Ananda is at that time a first stage arhat. So he makes a bodhisattva vow very early in his arhatship, which means that he has the resolve and the mind to be a bodhisattva.
像这里呢，是阿难尊者他所发的愿。他当时发这个愿呢，他其实当时的证悟的程度是到了就是罗汉的第一个初阶，就初级的罗汉。可是在他就是顿了第一期的这个初级罗汉呢，他就发了这个菩提心，要行菩萨道，所以他很早在就是证的第一个位阶的罗汉，他就发了菩提心往菩萨道上走。
English, Terry.
I heard the Buddha say, before you yourself have been saved, you can first save others. That is the resolve that bodhisattvas make. Before becoming completely awakened yourself, you can help other people awaken. That is what thus come ones enter the world to do. Although I have not yet been saved, I resolve to first save sentient beings in the Dharmic ending age.
Okay, so we'll go on to the text, 2 languages.
世尊，此诸众生去佛见远，邪师说法，如恒河沙，欲摄其心入三摩地，云何令其安立道场，远诸魔事？云何令其安立道场，远诸魔事，于菩提心得无退去？
World-honored one, the beings of that time will have become more and more distant from the Buddha. As many false teachers as there are sand grains in the river Ganges will pretend to teach the Dharma. Should any beings of that time wish to guard and focus their minds so that they can enter samadhi, how may I guide them toward establishing a place for awakening where their practice will be secured against demonic disturbances and where they will not retreat from their resolve to become enlightened?
Okay, so this is actually David Brown's translation, and he used 2 words to translate one character. This character is pronounced sh, and it has a hand radical with 3 ears, and its meaning, it's a pictogram, because its meaning is to gather people together. So this hand is gathered in 3 ears, 3 people are listening. And so David used guard and focus for this character. I think later in the commentary, I just used the word focus.
这里是果州居士呢，他所翻译的《楞严经》，他当时在翻这个预摄提心，这个摄呢，摄受的摄，他是用2个英文字来代表这个概念，他是用 guard and focus， 就是去保护着跟专注力，他是这样子来翻这一个字。然后在我之后的的内容呢，我就会用专注这个字来解释就可以。
Terry?
World-honored one, sentient beings in the Dharma ending age become separated too far from the Buddha. Deviant teachers will abound, numbering more than Ganges River's sands, and will propound devious dharmas, but there will be sentient beings with initial resolve who wish to collect their thoughts and cultivate the way by using the ear organ to cultivate the Shurangama proper samadhi.
How can they be helped to establish bodhimandas and avoid being disturbed by deviant demons? How can they be helped in sustaining a peaceful mind as they practice, in being able to continually increase their resolve for bodhi, and in never retreating or getting lost due to the influence of deviant demons? So this is Ananda's question. And it has several parts. How can they be helped to establish bodhimandas, to not be disturbed by demons, to keep peaceful in their practice, to have their bodhi resolve continue to grow, and to never retreat or get lost? Alan, 再说一遍。
这里呢是阿难所提出来的问题，还有几个不同的重点。他提到呢，就是说如何能够帮助众生，他们在未来世呢能够安住修行，而不被邪魔捣乱。然后他们如何能够保持他们安定的心来继续修行？他们如何能够继续增长他们的菩提心，能够继续而不会呢退转，被邪魔干扰而退转？所以他这是阿难所提出来的这个几个重要的问题，有几个重点。
Alan， 第一个就是要离道场了。
对，第一个的问题就是说如何帮助众生安立道场。
Thank you. As to how bodhisattvas teach and transform sentient beings, whereas Protestantism uses loving words, bodhisattvas use compassionate hearts, not personal desire. Bodhisattvas, knowing that sentient beings are greedy for physical desire, will occasionally physically appear and speak Dharma. Iwan?
菩萨有时教化众生，因机逗教，亦用爱语，但这是慈悲心，不是私欲心。有时知道众生贪于色欲，故偶然亦现身说法。
As to how bodhisattvas teach and transform sentient beings, whereas Protestantism uses loving words, bodhisattvas use compassionate hearts, not personal desire. Bodhisattvas, knowing that sentient beings greedy for physical desire, will occasionally physically appear and speak Dharma.
Harry, tell the story. Read these several slides, please.
For instance, there's the story of Guanyin with the fish basket that took place during the Tang Dynasty. At that time, a whole village of people didn't believe in Buddhism. So Guanyin Bodhisattva transformed into a beautiful woman who sold fish. At the sight of her, people fell in love with her, especially young men who pursued her to ask for her hand in marriage. The woman who sold fish said to her suitors, "I am only one person, so I can only have one husband. There are too many of you. There will have to be a selection process as follows. Anyone who can recite the Universal Door chapter by heart will qualify." At that time, there were at least 100 young men in that village, and they all competed. After 3 days, there were more than 50 eligible men. That was too many, and so another selection process was needed. This time, the requirement was to memorize the Vajra Sutra within 7 days. Well, at the end of that week, more than 20 young men qualified.
Keep going, Terry.
That was still too many men, and so the limitation became anyone who could memorize the Lotus Sutra within 15 days. This time, only one young man named Ma qualified, and it was decided the wedding would take place that evening. Who would have thought that the groom would suddenly have a heart attack and die that night as he entered the bridal suite? Everyone mourned and helped her prepare for the funeral. Unexpectedly, a monk arrived and asked why everyone was so sad. People told him what had happened. The monk said, "He didn't die. That was just a transformation of Guanyin Bodhisattva who came to teach you." People didn't believe him, so they opened the coffin to check. Indeed, it was empty. There was no corpse in it. No one knew where it had run off to. As a result of this incident, the villagers took refuge with Buddhism, and the bridegroom, Ma, realized that human life is not everlasting. Thereupon, he saw through everything, renounced lay life, entered monastic life, and cultivated the way.
Yay, good story. So we come to the text again. We're going to need 2 languages.
尔时世尊于大众中称赞阿难，善哉善哉，如所问，安立道场，救护众生，莫结成逆。如今谛听，当为如说。阿难大众唯然奉教。
At that time, the world-honored one praised Ananda in front of the whole assembly, saying, "Good indeed, good indeed. You have asked how to establish a Bodhimanda and how to rescue and protect living beings who are sunk in the morass of the final age. Listen well now, and I will tell you." Ananda and all the others in the assembly replied, that they would respectfully accept and follow the instructions.
Though the Buddha is in a state of unmoving suchness, if he is invited to speak Dharma in order to benefit sentient beings, the Buddha will be delighted. And so he praised Ananda, saying, "Good indeed, good indeed. You've asked how a Bodhimanda should be established in order to rescue sentient beings in the Dharma ending age, so that they do not become submerged in and addicted to the Dharma the deviant teachers speak, or caused to lose their resolve for Bodhi. Listen well to what I say." Ananda, along with all those in the great assembly, agreed to listen. 2 languages.
佛告阿难：汝常闻我毗奈耶中宣说修行3决定义。所谓摄心为戒，因戒生定，因定发慧，是则名为3无漏学。
The Buddha said to Ananda, "When I have explained the Vinaya, you have often heard me speak of the 3 essential elements of spiritual practice: precepts, which require us to guard and focus the mind; samadhi, which arises from following precepts; and wisdom, which appears out of samadhi. These are the 3 practices that end outflows."
Okay, so outflows means that we don't contain our energy and recycle it. Instead, we let it out through what we say, through what we think, and through what we do, we outflow.
这里所指的漏呢，漏就是指我们的精气漏了。那从哪些地方漏掉了呢？就从我们的，比如说说话，从我们的思想想事情，或是还有我们的行为举止，像这样子，我们的精气就漏。
Terry?
The Buddha told Ananda, "Haven't you heard me talk about the Vinaya of the greater and lesser vehicles often? Those who resolve to cultivate must certainly rely on 3 decisive aspects in their practice."
Continue.
That is to say, the precepts gather in the mind. They are a good method for properly stopping evil and guarding against making transgressions. Samadhi results because the precepts are purifying in the way that letting muddy water settle will make it clear. Wisdom is derived from samadhi. Pure to the ultimate degree creates far-reaching light. That far-reaching light comes from awakening and possessing wisdom. These are the 3 practices that end outflows. This has 2 meanings: no outflowing into the 3 realms, and no attaching to emptiness.
Yuan, please read the Chinese.
所谓摄心为戒，这是指恶防非的好方法。有了戒，好像浑水澄清而能生定，由定发慧，尽极光通达。通达就是开悟有智慧，这叫做3无漏学，不再漏落于3界，不再着于空有2边的意思。
Haven't people become Buddhas? It's because they do not focus the mind. They do not control the mad mind, the opportunistic mind. From morning to night, their false thinking is profuse, and they're always paying attention to others. Now, the opportunistic mind should be gathered back in. Don't let it race outside. It should be kept in one place. Only then can we gain samadhi power. Only then can we develop wisdom. Two languages for the text.
阿难，云何摄心？我名为戒。
Ananda, why do I say that to follow the precepts is to guard and focus the mind?
Again, Terry.
Ananda,
Can't hear you, Terry. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Kian, somebody else need to read?
Maybe Barbara, can you read?
Yes. Ananda, why do I say that precepts gather in the mind? It is because the mind is the basis of the precepts. So if it is gathered in and kept in one place, then the precepts are being held. If it is not controlled, if it is allowed to be lax, then precepts will get broken.
Okay, so we come to, there are 4 instructions on purity. The first is to end or sever sexual activity. 2 languages for the text, please.
若诸世界六道众生其心不盈，则不随其生死相续。
In all worlds, being in the 6 destinies, whose minds are free of sexual desire, will not be bound to an unending cycle of deaths and rebirths.
Again, Barbara, English.
If sentient beings in the 6 paths in this world harbored no thought of sexual desire, then they wouldn't keep revolving in the cycle of birth and death. They would sever the flow of birth and death.
2 languages for the text, please.
汝修三昧，本处尘劳，淫心不除，尘不可除。纵有多智，禅定现前，如不断淫，必落魔道。上品魔王，中品魔民，下品魔女。
Barbara.
No matter how much you may practice, in order to transcend the stress of entanglement with perceived objects, you will never transcend that stress until you have freed yourself from sexual desire. Even very intelligent people who can enter samadhi while practicing meditation in stillness will be certain to fall into the realm of demons upon their rebirth if they have not renounced sexual activity. The best among them will become kings among demons. Those at intermediate levels will be members of demon hordes. Female demons will be at the lowest levels.
This is going to worry people. And Master Hua modified this slightly by saying, for a monastic, no sexual activity would be the norm. For people who are legitimately partners, legitimately married, or have a long-term partnership that's recognized by common law, then they should remain faithful to each other. So that this would mean any wanton sexual activity would lead to becoming a demon. Not necessarily the case that any sexual activity would. So this was the way that the master expediently modified this text. Alan?
像上人解释这段经文的时候，他很善巧方便。他的解释呢，说如果是出家众的话呢，就是要断淫。那如果说在家众呢，譬如说你已经结婚，就是由政府所认定的这种结婚合法的结婚，或是有固定的伴侣，像这样子的一种的情况呢， 那你如果对你的伴侣非常的忠诚、忠实，对，那你虽然没有说断淫，可是你不会去找你伴侣其他之外的人有这样子的行为，所以这样子来解释呢，上人是用一种比较善巧的方式来解释这个断淫。
So in America, if you're together with someone for 7 years, that's called a common law marriage, even though you didn't go through a ceremony. So 7 years together would consider you married in the eyes of America. Alan?
像在美国，譬如说你有个固定的伴侣，譬如说超过7年，7年是一个法律的一个界定。那虽然你没有正式的举行一个婚礼或去登记之类的，但是因为你们已经固定的在一起7年以上的时间，所以根据美国的法律呢，它算是一种婚约。
You resolve to cultivate proper samadhi with the goal of being to transcend mundane defilements and be free of birth and death. But if you do not sever sexual desire, you certainly won't reach that goal. That's because sexual desire is a mundane defilement. Not to mention actual sexual activity, thoughts of sexual desire are mundane defilements. How could we awaken and become Buddhas? So the point here is we need to transcend mundane defilements, but in his passage here, the master says sexual desire is itself a mundane defilement. So we must transcend it.
所以上人这里的解释呢，他是说你要修正定，就是要超出尘劳，脱离生死，淫欲心不断就不可能。因为其实淫欲心就是尘劳，尘劳就是淫欲心，所以你淫欲心不断，如何能够出尘劳呢？怎么能够开悟成佛？
Nowadays, people who have deviant knowledge and deviant views also want to awaken and become Buddhas, but are unable to cast aside sexual desire. That's a real shame. Even if Buddha were in the world, he would not be able to rescue you. Okay, Terry, one more English, please.
Despite their having wisdom and being able to enter light ease in dhyana samadhi, if they don't sever thoughts of sexual desire, they will definitely descend into the path of demons. At the highest level, they will become demon kings. At mid-level, they will be among the demon populace. At the lowest level, they will be female demons. Female demons are absolutely gorgeous, but also absolutely despicable.
Okay, I think we can read one more passage of text. 2 languages, please.
持法师华丽 will help with reading.
Okay. Wally?
彼等诸魔已有徒众，个个自谓成无上道。我灭度后，末法之中，多此魔名，炽盛世间，广行贪淫。为善之时，令诸众生若爱见坑，失菩提路。
These demons will attract groups of disciples and will tell them that they have realized unsurpassed enlightenment. After my nirvana, in the time of the Dharma's ending, many such demonic hordes will sweep like wildfire across the world and will openly parade their lustfulness while pretending to be good and wise teachers. These demons will cause beings to fall into the pit of sexual desire and wrong views concerning desire, and they will stray off the road to perfect enlightenment.
Okay, I think we're going to have to stop because it's we have 2 minutes to do our transference. I was going to look for
持法师 we won't end until 9 o'clock.
Oh,
So you have about 15 more minutes to go.
I get it wrong 15 each way, don't I?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so we'll go back to what we're doing. Oh, where are we? I think this is where we are, right?
Yes.
Okay, Terry, can you read the English, please?
These deviant demons have their followers who know no shame. They all think that they are already Buddhas, that they have realized the unsurpassed great way. When the Buddha was in the world, he said, after my passing, during the Dharma ending age, the world will be full of these demon followers. They will spread like wildfire.
It will talk about greedy desire and deviant sex, especially to innocent young men, sharing their experiences and praising each other. They consider themselves good mentors and cause the innocent to fall into the deep pit of emotional love and desire based on their deviant views. They lose the path that leads to the great way of Bodhi. Terry?
Last month, I saw someone, I won't bring up a name, who said he was a Buddha. I said, you are a demon. Why did I say that? It's because all he did was talk about emotional love. Everything he said was about love. I love everybody, he professed. He was shameless. What right does he have to love everyone?
Barbara?
But a lot of people were confused by him, sided with him, and said that he expressed himself well. That's really a case of the blind leading the blind. I wrote a line of verse that describes this. A dumb one tells another dumb one, and in one telling, two don't understand. The teacher falls into the hells, and the disciples dig their way in after him.
Okay. Terry? Terry? Can't hear you.
When they get to the hells, the teacher sees the disciple and asks them, this place is no fun. People endure suffering here. Why have you come? The disciple answers him, you came first, so of course we followed you. They weren't blaming him. They were just stating the facts.
2 languages, please.
汝教世人修三摩地，先断心淫。是名如来，先佛世尊，第一决定清净明慧。
Therefore, when you teach people to practice samadhi, first teach them to rid their minds of sexual desire. That is the first of the 4 clear and definitive instructions on purity that I have been given by the Thus Come One and by all the Buddhas of the past world-honored ones.
Barbara?
When you guide others, teaching them to cultivate proper samadhi, you must first abolish sexual thoughts. This is the first decisive instruction offered by the Thus Come One and by all Buddhas in the past. This clear and decisive instruction on how to be pure cannot be changed. We must venerate these 4 instructions on how to be pure that the Buddhas taught us.
Terry?
Anyone who fixates on emotional love and desire is a demon king. Even though bodhisattvas also talk about love, it's kindness and compassion they are referring to, not selfish love. They make no distinctions of self and others with regard to sentient beings. The love demons ascribe to has motives. It is a greedy desire. One gets it wrong and one gets it right. That's the difference between what demons and bodhisattvas advocate.
Languages?
是故阿难，若不断淫，修禅定者，如真砂石，欲其成饭，经百千劫，指明热沙，何以故？此非饭本，砂石成故。
Therefore, Ananda, one who practices, Therefore, Ananda, one who practices entering samadhi while practicing meditation in stillness without renouncing sexual activity is like one who cooks sand in the hope that it will turn into rice. 100,000 eons might pass and it would still be nothing but hot sand, since it wasn't rice to begin with. It was merely sand.
So if you want to have a partnership, then you need to accept the master's expedient explanation here, which was that renouncing sexual activity completely is what monastics should do, but that for people who are in a dedicated relationship, married or in a partnership that has gone on for 7 years or more, then you have to read this as being loyal to the person they're in the partnership with. The master allowed that explanation. Alan?
所以这里的解释呢，我们就要接受就是上人当时的善巧方便的解释，因为上人是有指出来，譬如说呢，你是有一个结婚的婚约，有固定的伴侣，譬如说超过7年以上这样固定的伴侣，然后你有这样子的一种结婚的一种约定，那你必须要对你的伴侣很忠心、很诚实，这样子来面对你的伴侣。所以这样子就是接受上人这样善巧方便的解释，让大家了解。
Harry?
Entertaining sexual thoughts will certainly cause the person to descend into the path of demons. For that reason, if thoughts of sexual desire are not severed when a person practices dhyana samadhi, then on the one hand, there's cultivation, and on the other hand, there's outflowing. Wanting to awaken without severing sexual desire is like wanting to cook sand until it becomes rice. You may want it to become rice, but though you may cook it for 1,000,000 eons, it's still going to be sand. Why? Sand isn't rice. It's not edible.
Okay. So again, we can, for those of you, because we don't want people to read this who are in loving relationships, in healthy and giving relationships, to suddenly think, well, if I'm going to follow Buddhism, then I can't have a relationship, and cut it off with their partner. So the master said, you have a good relationship with a partner, then you can read this text to mean stay with that partner, be loyal to that partner. Alan.
所以刚才我们有解释到上人的解释，像如果说你是在家的一个修行人，你读了这段经文，你就说啊，那我必须要断淫，那我这样就不能够有一个，比如说一个很健康、一个正常的一种伴侣的关系了，那我就必须要把我的所有的伴侣呢都把它切断，我的伴侣的关系都切断啊，是不用这样子来解释的，因为呢，上人有解释，你如果是在家修行者，对，你可以保持一个健康的关系，对你的伴侣很忠实、很诚实，这样子来维护你一个跟你伴侣的一个健康的关系，这样子呢，上人是说是可以的。
But speaking frankly, the master also said that sexual desire is close to death. Alan?
不过我们就很诚实的讲，上人也提过，像这种性行为呢，也就是更接近了死亡。
Why does he say that? Because even though you feel, you may think in your mind that you're giving by performing the sexual act, in fact, you're taking. Because if your partner comes to culmination, your partner will lose a whole lot of energy. And so basically, what you think of as giving and loving is actually stealing away a person's energy and bringing them closer to death. That's the truth of the matter. Alan?
那上人怎么会这样解释呢？为什么说性行为是更接近死亡？其实你可以去思考，譬如说呢，当你在性行为的时候呢，你觉得说，诶，我是提供这样子的行为，这样服务给我的伴侣。可是你如果更深层的去思考，其实你并不是一个给予，你其实是一种剥夺。因为这种性行为之后呢，其实你的伴侣呢会失去大量的精气，所以你其实是把你的伴侣的精气呢给剥夺掉了，给偷走了。所以你认为你是在给予你的伴侣，可事实上你是剥夺了、偷走了你的伴侣的精气。所以这样精气被偷走了，那当然就更接近死亡。
Okay, so we are coming to the end of our class today. Read one more slide. I'm sorry.
Maybe Alan can lead us to dedicate Mary.
Yes, I'm going to read one more slide and then we'll do that.
Okay.
Sexual desire is really severed without there being any appearance of self, others, sentient beings, or lifespans. Then there would be no problem for men and women to be together because their minds would be like stilled water. They would have reached the state of the eyes contemplate form, but there's none inside. Ears hear sounds, but the mind does not know it. Okay, so Alan, okay. We'll stop here tonight, which is on page 44. Alan, would you be able to, we'll all mute our mics now, and would you please say or sing the
Yes, 阿弥陀佛。May the Mary from this practice adorn all the Buddha's lands, repay the kindness from above, and rescue those in paths below. May all who see or hear all this resolve upon awakening, And when this body meets its end, be born together in the land of bliss.
Three half
Okay.
bows.
Yes, 3 half bows. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. And if you like, now we bow to the master. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. I appreciate your kind attention, and we will continue the topic next Sunday. Amitofo.
Thank you, Chih法师, for your lecture.